Which shoe is better to hoop in? We have the Adidas Trae Young 2 and the Adidas Dame 8. Dame and Trae, two killers on the court. Let's check out the shoes. All the way up on his 8th with Adidas. But first, I'll go ahead and touch on some of the basic info. So the Trae Young 2 is going to be our more expensive shoe today, retailing for $140. And even though it's only his second model, this is already the second most expensive shoe line with Adidas. I think only the Hardens are retailing for more, and they're price jumping like crazy. It was like $130 on the 5s, $140 on the 6s. I just paid $160 on the 7s. Like, Adidas needs to chill. But the Adidas Dame 8 is going to be down a little bit from there at $120, and that's even after the $10 price jump on the 7s, I think. So you got to love that. But now looking at the appearance of these models, Dame 8 is going to have like a similar mold to the 7s. I like the color break in the middle of the shoe though, where it kind of goes from that purple to the yellow. And then from the front, it's going to be mostly simple with this weird kind of like pull tab, like off-centered on the tongue. And they give you another pull tab like on the inner side of the shoe. And there's also some like fourth quarter KO branding. And then plus like that Dame text and that font on the inner side of that upper is, I think it's pretty tough. And the heel's pretty cool with the glitch text on the glitch Dame font like text on the left side of the shoe. The right side, there's like more of a patch on there. So definitely not a bad looking model. You're going to see more of a change though whenever you look at the Trae Young 2s compared to the 1s, especially in the appearance. So they added even more of like a sock-like look to this shoe, especially around the collar. But you know, the same 3 loops through the midsole are going to be there from the side. But this colorway looks really clean from the front. I like the 3 stripes kind of going across the upper there. Then you're going to have Trae Young's logo on the tongue. The heel is going to be pretty basic though, like with just his last name up around the top of the heel. So honestly, 2 nice looking models. I probably like the Trae Young 2s a little bit more personally, but now let's see how they hold up on the court. All right, so now getting into more of the performance side, I'll go ahead and start off with the cushioning. Before I talk about how they play, I'll just go ahead and like take a second to give you the cushioning setup for both of these models. So the Trae Young 2 gets a light strike midsole paired with some boost cushioning in the heel, meant to give you a lightweight and responsive feel for comfort. And even though it is the same brand, the Dame 8 is using some different stuff. These are going to have a dual density Bounce Pro midsole that's also designed to give you the perfect ratio of energy return, cushioning, and support. And that's kind of how Adidas lays it out on their like website for the actual cushioning tech. And I'll start off by saying the Trae Young 1, like it had some issues with like the support, you know, the traction a little bit, but cushioning on the model for last year for the Trae Young 1, that was never an issue. That was a super comfortable model. The cushioning was like, you know, super padded. These feel like they lost a little bit of that deeper feel. The Dame 8s have about the same padding under your foot, but you know, more help coming from the sock liner to give you some more enhanced comfort all around. I just think the Trae Young 2 having that thinner upper, which I am going to talk about a little bit more in a second, it just doesn't do a lot for the cushion on these. But at the same time, the Trae Young 2s are coming down from a much better cushioning spot than the Dame 7s were like, you know, trying to come up from. But I would still say the Trae Young 2s, they're gonna have better padding in the heel, and the boost cushioning back there is definitely what helps with that. But using our durometer to check out the midsole, the Dame 8 was reading at a 51. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty stiff, but Trae Young 2 was on the much softer side than that. And we actually measured both parts of the shoe. The light strike in the midsole, or like in the front half of the shoe, was a little bit more firm at 34 compared to getting a reading of 20 in the heel where that boost is set up. And that's honestly a good representation of how the Trae Young 2 kind of feels and plays. You get a little bit more padding in the heel, but for cushioning alone, you do kind of have about the same performance feel between the Trae Young 2 and the Dame 8. You're just paying $20 more for the Trae Young 2. So now looking at the materials and the support, the Trae Young 2 gets what Adidas calls this Sock 360 knit upper that's supposed to like mold to your foot for an adaptive fit and next level lockdown, and that is going to be what the bulk of the upper consists of. The Dame 8 has a few more moving pieces. The upper is going to be made out of this air mesh material. You also have some like textile lining to the upper to go along with that, but something cool about both of these models is that 25 of the components used to make up the upper are going to be made with a minimum of 50% recycled content, and Adidas has been doing that with most of their shoes, so props to them for that. But I mean, before we get into the support, the weight of these shoes surprised me a little bit. The Dame 8 was weighing in at 440 grams for a size 10.5, and you know, that's pretty average to like for more of like a mid-top shoe, I guess. But the Trae Young 2 is going to be weighing a little bit more than that at 478 grams for the same size. And you know, with the thinner knit material on the upper, I kind of just figured that the Trae Young 2 would weigh less than last year's model, not more. But I mean, it's still not heavy enough to where it's concerning or anything like that. I wouldn't consider either of them light though. But now going ahead and moving on to the support, the Trae Young 2 had some like ground to make up from last year. Typically going with like a thinner upper isn't going to be the way to help with that, but personally I feel like the support got better. Like this specific upper was called like that adaptive fit, like Sock 360 knit, that's what they were calling it, and it's like it holds a little bit better than I was expecting. Adidas didn't do much in terms of adding like a bunch of overlays, but you know, these do have a little bit of an outrigger to give you some better balance and just kind of brace your foot. And then the heel counter is going to be really solid, and I think that helps eliminate some slippage that was there in last year's model. Plus you did get, you know, there were only 2 lacing loops on the Trae Young 1, almost like, you know, one of those Adidas next level models, but they did add like 3 or 4 lace loops to the Trae Young 2, and tightening those do help. But on certain moves, you might get a little bit of shifting to the upper, but I feel like it's an improvement. But now moving it over to the Dame 8, these are going to be like more of a layered feel on the upper for sure, but you know, same as the Trae Young 2, you don't get a ton of additional support features, but you don't really need them. This is just like a secure model. There's no heel movement, and these actually have like a little Achilles pillow, like a little Achilles pad back there, but the Trae Young 2 has like Achilles pads in the sock liner. Can't really leave those out, but honestly not bad for these categories still. I just personally wish they weighed a little bit less. All right, so finishing it off with the traction. Once again, I'll just kind of give you like a shot at the patterns before I talk about how they play. For the Dame 8, you're going to have some wavy lines in there from the front to the back, along with some indents in like the middle of the shoe where you see those purple spots. The Trae Young 2 has the same patterns from last year's model, just in different parts, with like the radial design in the forefoot and the heel. Then you're going to have some herringbone kind of off to the sides. And if I'm being honest, like there aren't a ton of shoes that I go to from Adidas whenever I'm looking at like the traction specifically. Most of their shoes play, you know, average to slightly above or below, but I mean, the Trae Young 2 is going to be very solid this year. This is a much stickier feel on the court compared to the ones and compared to the Dame 8s. Dame's line's just kind of been stuck in that consistently good, but never really great for traction. I mean, it's not really a super sticky model, but the grooves are going to be pretty deep, so this is definitely the better suitor for outdoors on the Dame 8 out of these two models. But finishing it off with the sizing, I did go true to size on both, and you have, you know, about a thumb's width left over for the length on both models. Trae Young 2 runs a little bit more narrow though, so keep that in mind. Dame 8s are a little bit wider, so if you want to go half size down, you might be able to do that. So for the final ratings and starting off with the appearance, Dame's line has been looking a little bit too similar lately. I honestly like it, but the fresh look to the Trae Young 2s and just like dealing with this new line, I think they look better, so I'm going to start off with the Trae Young 2s. And of course, like that doesn't actually factor into the performance rating. I just like to do it. So now looking at the cushioning, both of these models, like they're going to give you a balanced feel, but I do feel like the Trae Young 2s just aren't as soft as the ones were, but the Dames weren't either. The Dame 8s weren't either. So that decline from the Trae Young 1, you know, kind of has these landing in the same spot. So we're going to go with the tie for that section. Now looking at the materials, we already know that both models have like the same recycled content. I like the Sock 360 knit upper on the Trae Young 2s, but they're a little bit heavier too. So I'm just going to come back to a tie here. It takes something pretty significant to kind of sway that section. There's just no clear way to lean. So now onto the support. The Trae Young 2 is in a tough spot, like from the jump, coming off of last year's model. They didn't add any overlays. I mean, for the most part, you got those extra lacing loops, but overall, the Dame 8 is just going to be a more supportive feel. So I'm going to go with the Dame 8 for support. But finishing off with the traction, that has to go to the Trae Young 2. Noticeably better grip on the court, and you know that's going to lead to me going personally with the Trae Young 2 as the better shooter of the pin. Both of these shoes, I'd say, both of these models have some spots to improve, but I think there's a bigger gap between like the feel for the traction compared to like the supportive feel. But definitely let me know down in the comments which shoe you guys like to hoop in more. We all have our preferences. Thank you guys for taking some time to watch. If you're interested in buying the Trae Young 2 and you want to support our channel, just click the link here on screen, or we have links for both shoes down below or in our bio. Feel free to check that out. But until next review, I'm Landon from Shoewear. Peace.